and Comrie. 8 presentations.
Уважаемые коллеги, доброе
утро. Colleagues, good morning. So I suggest that we start our event. Yesterday we partly talked on a plenary session and in strategic session on state support, governmental support, about all the norms and legal documents and rules of localization and import substitution that have been generation in shipbuilding industry in the Russian Federation. I'd like to speak about Russian shipbuilding market, acting and prospect requirements to production of ships and the components in the Russian Federation. Till later, our market was open without limits for all supplies of ships and equipment from abroad. But with the growing of sanctions, as you remember,
события стали происходить с 2015 года.
Happened starting 2015. And to address to the government and state and the shipbuilding industry, we had to think about development of our own production of ship equipment and components, marine components, and requirements to the level of localization and construction of the ships. The rules are simple. We don't prohibit anything. We don't ban anything. We don't limit anybody from supply of foreign equipment. But we just generate Russian content, demand, and Russian equipment at ship construction. When we need to build a ship with a certain number of points, and you can get the points with equipment and the components produced on the territory of the Russian Federation with a certain level of localization. So I'll speak about more details in my presentation. Also, we'll discuss what kind of formats of localization are available. They can be deeper, the greenfield, with construction of the whole enterprises. It can be joint stock company.
Партнерство с российским предприятием, которое производит схожую продукцию.
Similar products. The formats can be various, and actually the level of cost is different.
У каждой компании есть.
Each company has got its own goals and objectives on the Russian market, so you need to earmark them and make the business plan. And the plan of actually corresponds to the requirements for production of the equipment.
Ну и прежде всего хотел бы.
First, I'll go to give the floor to our speaker. It's the most vivid example of the cooperation with foreign companies. Firstly, it's Korean companies.
Как вы знаете, на Дальнем Востоке сейчас формируется крупнейшая в Российской Федерации инвестиционный
project in the part of in shipbuilding industry.
Который впервые
It's Zvezda complex that's the first pioneered for many years. Because there were no this kind of
крупнотоннажных судов и имеет большую производственную программу.
Capacity vessels and has big production program. I know 56 vessels have been contracted, and I think that the overall plan of this is about 120 vessels, and we can understand it's a prospect market.
Суда все, скажем так, дорогостоящие финансово.
Actually, they fund consuming vessels.
Этот проект заслуживает особого внимания, и я бы.
And so I've asked Mr. Konstantin Glabenko, Deputy General Director and Project Director of Zvezda. He'll speak about cooperation and available cooperation with Korean companies as well. Please, I'm giving you the floor.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good morning, dear colleagues.
Поблагодарить
First of all, I'd
организаторов
like
за
to thank
предоставленную
organizers
возможность
for giving me the
выступить,
opportunity to make presentation this
представить
session.
вам
I'd like to
информацию
present some information about the
кооперации
experience of
судостроительного
cooperation
комплекса «Звезда» с
shipbuilding complex Zvezda
Республики Корея.
with companies from Republic of Korea as an example.
Проект
на
основании поручения президента Российской Федерации Владимира Владимировича Путина. Судостроительный комплекс «Звезда» — это российская основными верфи являются крупнейший тяжелый досточный стапель,
shipyard with a dry dock that allows for building big ships and
крана типа «Голиаф»
two cranes with 1,200 tons loading capacity each. So this allows production of 330,000 tons of metal a year with blocks about up to 3,000 tons.
66 судов гражданского назначения, а сумма контрактов
of civilian order, and we've got
приближается уже к 900 тысячам.
are in construction. Got the contracts are worth 680,000.
В портфеле заказов «Звезды» такие уникальные суда, как суда-газовозы для проекта челноки, ледоковы и другие суда гражданского назначения. Пилотную загрузку комплекса обеспечивает заключившая контракт
that contracted us for construction 28 ships with 12 Aframax tankers, 10 Arctic shuttle tankers of different deadweight, and a drilling vessel and support vessels.
В соответствии с постановлением правительства Российской
Federation, we are aiming at localization of production of the Russian Federation, and Zvezda is supporting this direction of development of Russian industry via shipbuilding project
технологическими партнерами,
our
в качестве
production partners, including the South Korean shipyards that are including big three. Like Samsung was picked up as a technological partner for LNG-2 for gas carriers and shuttle tankers, and Hyundai helps Aframax and armored tankers.
Совместная работа ССК «Звезда» с компаниями
Zvezda works on following areas of development, its cooperation in construction, also material package supply, delivery of technical documentation, experience in standards in safety and quality assurance planning, assess of risk, provision of qualified personnel, personnel, and training of Zvezda personnel. In view of support, the territory of Большой Камень, so a joint venture, Zvezda Hyundai, along with Hyundai, and a joint venture with Samsung called Zvezda Samsung. They train engineering personnel adaptation for the Russian standard, the documentation, organization of joint work in technical supervision on shipbuilding in the territory of Zvezda, given recommendation, organization of planning, working of warehouses and the production. So as the partner companies build certain competence and construction of modern cutting-edge ships, and we've got a good experience working with customers. It ensures good quality of products on the territory of the Russian Federation. One of good examples of the working cooperation with Hyundai is delivery in December 22, delivery of to Rosneft, the so-called green vessels, Aframax class tankers working on LNG. It's 114,000 ton detweg called Semanamach. So we use huge block technology, and we use 3.5 thousand ton blocks to assemble the whole vessel. It's actually expands the opportunities and capabilities of Russian shipyards. Another example, cooperation of the Korean shipyards is gas carriers, along construction along with Samsung company. We organized joint process of managing the project with a joint team consisting of comprised of Russian and Korean specialists working on the territory of Zvezda shipyards. We think it's the best way of cooperation and given the best results in making this product. Korean specialists are helping us, starting from project management. Also, we actually employ Korean workers and the foremen that work along with our specialists, and there's assembly of a membrane system in cargo tanks of LNG. It's the first operation run on the territory of the Russian Federation. Will be performed with employment of Korean specialists that are involved in membrane assembly. The biggest cluster is being generated in the area of Zvezda. The analysis of the shipbuilding industry development in the country showed that the cluster approach is the best one, and it uses, as in many countries, the governmental support is very important, and the cluster approach is very suitable for shipbuilding, and it's very much developed in the Far East. And it's, actually, this approach localizes all the links of the chain in one territory, which makes the cluster very competitive and makes the enterprise, the part of the cluster, very competitive. So the tool of development was a creating of beneficial development areas on the Far East, and this kind of areas, the Zvezda is also on the territory of Большой Камень. So this kind of advanced development territories, they help implement the cutting-edge projects. Management of these areas is performed by a cooperation of Far East development. One of this kind of territories is the territory Большой Камень, will be center of shipbuilding cluster, and will have all the chain of production, the products, starting from production of equipment and materials and up to the end product, shipbuilding. So in the vicinity of shipbuilding complex Zvezda, the beneficial project is been implemented. Industrial park Большой Камень. It will take 172 hectares in the vicinity of Zvezda shipyards. This area will see the construction of office facilities for renting and warehouse facilities, and offices will be used for the companies who will be ready to enter this cluster. The operator is a Corporation of Development of Primorsky Krai. Take into consideration that about 90% of equipment for building ships is purchased from abroad. The localization of this kind of equipment and engines and cargo lifting equipment, pumps, and other construction materials, structural materials are essential. Zvezda Shipyards is open for cooperation, is open for proposals from Korean companies and other companies that are dealing with shipbuilding. And government has created the most beneficial conditions like this advanced development areas and industrial parks in the area of Bolshoi companies. So all infrastructural opportunities are created for localization of production in the vicinity of Zvezda shipyards. So that's in the nutshell what I wanted to speak about our work and our partnership with our Korean foreign companies, Korean companies. Vladimir, thank you very much. A very interesting presentation. I've got a number of some questions. So tell me, please, selecting this for this technopark, Bolshoi Kamen, it's got shipbuilding area. So how do you select people? Who is selected for this? So firstly, you pick the most critical equipment, manufacturers most critical equipment most critical for Zvezda. So who can we address? Who are the colleagues you can address? How actually to enter this technopark? What's the conditions of getting to this technopark? So I especially mentioned who is responsible for its implementation. It's Corporation of Development of Primorsky Krai. You've got their website, and all the conditions are specified there, all the conditions for entering the territory of this technopark. If you answer the questions additionally about this advanced development areas, also is Дальний Восток Far East Development Corporation. They've got all the instruction of entering this advanced development areas. It's in Russian and English. All companies who are considering this kind of opportunity can get all clear and up-to-date information on the above-mentioned resources. I'm not going to speak about the conditions of entering. You can get this information from official sources. On my part, I can say that we welcome all companies, all kind of productions, so interested in development and bringing up their, building up their presence in the vicinity of Zvezda shipyards. You see, our ambitions are big, so I think we'll have great demand in materials and equipment. So all companies that are ready to work in this area are welcome. But still, the development corporation, they provide some household conditions, some technical conditions, but company would like to be aware that its production will be on demand in Zvezda, and primarily needed to run some negotiations with Zvezda, with your enterprises, how much their product, what's the level of demand of their product, and then to enter Technopark. Yes, that's correct. We're working using the Federal Law 223, and actual selection and supply of equipment is based on tenders, and you may make the lists, and those suppliers of shipbuilding equipment are clear. If you get into the makers, you're into the makers list. You're in the makers list. It concerns big size equipment. That's everything's clear, and then you are actually bidding for it. In the tender. What might be interesting is to mass, large-scale production. We speak about marine engines. Our volume of shipbuilding projects of 66 vessels, it's possible for single production. It's pretty complex for entering this business, but some mass actually big volume supply of equipment. It's something. It's my viewpoint. It's you can be aware that you'll enter the and enter this business. And also there are some tax benefits and also production at Большой Камень Advanced Development and the Technopark territory will give us opportunities to provide the competitive conditions. It's a direct vicinity with Zvezda shipyards, so competitive edge will be high of this company. And we are open for the dialogue with different companies. We speak about localization. Several times we went to Korea, made presentation for Korean companies, and invited them to enter the territory of the Russian Federation, localize their production. So to guarantee some exclusive conditions, we cannot, as I repeated, it's tender conditions, tender bidding conditions, but the benefits that that are granted when you're localized at Большой Камень will play the role. Maybe I'm speaking too long and too intricate, but actually exhaustive. Are there any questions from the audience? So who's got the microphone, please? I think it's no. Now we've got it simultaneous translation, and then the interpreters are not going to hear. So thanks for interest in Sukovictor. Maritime St. Petersburg. Speak about the metallurgical production in the vicinity of the of Zvezda, and so you've got work for Azepods. Do you work with other groups? Some joint work. I'll start with Azepods. Azimuthal thrusters. There's in the vicinity of Zvezda. There is a shop with a construction, the joint company of Rosneft and General Electric, joint venture, Sapphira. They make 7.5 megawatt azimuthal thrusters, and they started as azimuthal thrusters for gas carriers. It's 15 megawatt azipods. There are not many companies who produce this kind. It's for LNG too, actually, to tankers, carriers. And opportunities of Sapphire has already assembled the first azipod. Experience of joint work of this kind of enterprise. It's a possible option, but it's for some very equipment that's on high demand, because you can creating joint ventures so for everything is not reasonable. So there's some anchor things are important, and we are running dialogues with many companies. Yes, actually it takes place. It said that we've got joint ventures with Hyundai and Samsung with Damen, and we're using this format, but also there are some companies who enter themselves and register their legal bodies without actually registering joint stock companies. In terms of metallurgical production, yes, there were some difficulties. Zvezda shipyards is oriented at large capacity vessels construction, so we need this as lists, and we use experience of Korean experience on large capacity ships building, and sometimes we've got this the metal sheet that was delivered, but actually it's not easy to transport it by rail. This Eastern Economic Forum, there were some talks about entering some metal rolling plant on the territory of this territory, and it will be in the vicinity at stone's throw from Zvezda shipyards. I think they speak about 1 million tons a year, and firstly it's created for the needs. It's targeted at pipe production and others for Zvezda, but also running negotiations with Samsung and Hyundai, our Korean partners, Currently, when China has entered some limitations on export of steel, our Korean partners are interested in purchase of Russian wide sheet metal purchase. So maybe this vector, when we get from there, when the reverse of the vector, when we'll be producing for them. So we're working on this. Thank you, Mr. Vladimirovich. Are there any other questions?
Добрый день, спасибо большое.
Good morning, Konstantin. I am Dmitry. I am Deputy General Director of one of Russian-Chinese joint ventures in Russia. So we localize the manufacturing in Tula region, steam generators of high capacity and boilers of high capacity. We aim at attracting Chinese technologies to Russia. What do you think of setting up a joint venture with our Chinese brothers? Here's Asker. You have to review on a case-by-case basis. Setting up a JV for every localization doesn't make sense. Yes, I mean localizing production. We have as a partner a leading Chinese manufacturer, Carbon Electric Corporation. They are number 5 globally, and they work in the shipbuilding as well, in desalination of the water. So, and we've registered with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. This company is registered as the holder of unique technologies supplied to the Russian market, and we wanted to continue to stay in the dialogue. We are open to talks. We have a special department dedicated to localizing of ship equipment supplies. So you can easily get their contacts. I will contact me and I will match you with people who are responsible for this avenue. Yes, we welcome this openness. Another question?
У меня такой вопрос, наверное, чисто технологический. Вы упомянули, что...
I have a rather technology-related question. So you speak about... I am Dobra Hodov from Altai Factory of Diesel Aggregates. So you mentioned membranes. So do you buy technologies for manufacturing membranes? Let's keep it at a general level. Korean, GTT, or any other technology? Which one do you use? Gas carriers that we manufacture for Arctic LNG2, they will have membrane tanks of VAR3 GTT type. They are different from previous type. We purchased Mark III, and it is approved by Novatec and Sovcomplot. Under GTT license, Zvezda Plan got certified and received documents allowing the assembly. So we are a shipyard. So we assemble and install membrane systems. We do not manufacture materials for membrane systems. But we are having an open approach to this avenue. We consider manufacturing membranes needed in Russia because even plywood for insulation panels for these systems will be manufactured in Russia. So the technology is quite complicated, and we had already talks with some company who expressed their wish to be involved, but then they backed out. But of course, we see that it will develop. It is promising. Answering your question, we have a GTT license VAR3. Have you considered Korean-owned technologies that they suggest? Well, the Koreans themselves are very critical about these technology, and I know only of one ship that was assembled for this technology, and they're not exactly happy about it. So we are the pioneers in the Russian Federation in this respect. It is quite tough and risky to be a pioneer in every respect. That's why we adopted the technology, was already tested and with a good reputation. So we talk about Arctic ships. At Yamal LNG, there were questions with regard to membrane because of loading, overloading, vibration. So that's why we decided to use the approved technology by the customer, already tested. My question, are you ready to deploy this technology further? Because you have this GTT license. Do you plan to share this technology with other shipyards? Because we have other shipyards manufacturing LNG tanks. Therefore, similar technologies will be required for, let's say, river ships. Have you considered any cooperation? Well, we can't deploy further technology and propagate it because this is owned by GTT, and GTT itself accredit and certify the shipyards. So this is not our scope of responsibility. So any shipyard can contact GTT directly and go through the procedures to be adopted. Well, this is not quite right. A group of experts were trained at GTT, and now they have, any group can be trained in assembling the membrane systems, and but GTT says any shipyard can't do it. We are speaking about different things. Slightly different things. Of course, you can certify staff and employ this staff at any shipyard. Samsung employees certified by GTT will work at joint groups at Zvezda plant. But currently, we have priority to our own projects. We do not have experts of this class at the moment. We need to train about 600 staff just to have enough human resource for our own projects. This is quite a challenge. We can't look outside of our own projects yet. Therefore, we do not consider participating in other projects yet because we have a handful of our projects. One more question.
Добрый день, Vineta Petrov.
Vineta Petrov Pavel. Good morning. Coming back to the theme of today's roundtable. In your presentation, you touched upon this fact that about over 90% of ship equipment today are foreign make. So in your Zvezda assessment, what is the right balance between domestically manufactured and imported ship equipment? And ideally, when we will hit this balance, what is your deadline? So I would say the ideal figure is 100%, unfortunately unattainable. So with the current volume of orders at Russian shipyards, currently placed at Russian shipyards, so when it comes to unique equipment or single type equipment, we have to cooperate with foreign makers. And yesterday we met some of them. They manufacture engines and compressors, and they said they don't want to localize manufacturing at every country because they want to manufacture at their own countries. So our ideal ratio is 30/70, 30 meaning the Russian component and 70 imported. So yes, that's my ideal combination. At any case, colleagues, localizing and increasing the localized percentage in shipbuilding is unavoidable. So I will later brief you on Decree 719. So localizing is a must. Maxim Moser from the ship repair plant. Moser, you mentioned Sapphire. So what technical processes are done at this company currently? What is the localization plan? Do you plan to get the certificates for this equipment under 719 regulation? So do you plan that technologies and components to be approved? What is your view? We have a Sapphire representative with us, so they will provide more details. We are planning to do it, and Sapphire is engaged to get all the confirmation needed for azipods, for rudder thrusts under the current 719. Even the old version of this document required us to comply with this. The workshop of Sapphire mostly is for testing, assembly, and installation. It's like the final element. The components that they include into thrust rudders, they plan to enhance this capacity even for our azipods. There was a plan to develop the localization at initial. We had a certain percentage at first ships, and then as the process mature, the localizing percentage will grow. And it's not only the formal requirement of 719. This is what can be done realistically. In fact, not everything can be manufactured when it comes to components in Russia. So we have to balance our aspirations and practicality. So, and currently, both the propeller and some elements of propeller and some of the equipment is localized, and the hulls, the casing of these rudders is somewhat localized. So the issue is wider than the objectives of the workshop itself, because they get components from other specialized factories. So we visited Corner plant at Chelyabinsk, and it was pleased to see the entire workflow having the blades for azipods at Sapphire. BB is in negotiations for cooperation. So we can see this is a good example how these rudder propellers support the localization directive under number 719. We're moving to the next presenter. Thank you for your very exhaustive answers. The next speaker. Let me introduce. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Stoyanov Dmitril, the head of the Localization Center for ship equipment at SNI Kursk. We were set up by the Minister of Commerce and Industry. We are involved in import substitution, and I will give you more information in my presentation.
Несколько слов хотел бы сказать о...
Briefly, about the shipbuilding market in Russia. It is evident that it is wider than just Zvezda shipyard. There are other players as well. The majority of shipbuilding capacity is located in Russia's Europe, especially at its northwestern part where we are currently. So the shipbuilding plan means that there are about 1,000 sites by 2030, and these are well calculated figures by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and the figures are updated every quarter. So it's quite a spacious market, and we have all types of vessels, river, sea, maritime transportation, etc.
Нормативно-правовом регулировании
Icebreakers, etc. Now, the legal framework which regulates import substitution in shipbuilding. May this year, we saw the signing of 719, which introduces scores in shipbuilding or point systems. These are new rules, and they determine the requirements for shipbuilding where Russian components must be employed. There is no ban for direct supply from abroad, but we try to raise the demand for Russian components manufactured under requirements of Law 719. 719, some people say it is not necessary to be compliant with it because we used to manufacture it differently. However, the shipping code of the Russian Federation for merchant ships now has amendments. And the special activity types are being negotiated because this is a separate sub-law, but this document will cover near the shore, ice piloting, transportation of harbor carbons via Arctic route, and therefore every ship to be used in these activities must be constructed under Law 719. So this way, there is a huge demand being shaped for Russian-manufactured ships. There are other documents governing requirements for 719. I will not give more details, but I gave you the general outlook.
Лучше подробно расскажу.
Let me rather focus on the structure of the score system. The document is divided into 75 ship types, and they are part of the classification system.
Право на конструкторскую документацию.
And there are requirements vis-à-vis design documents, technological processes, and scores are given only to large block and section building because they improve the reworking of the staff. It also covers specialized equipment, ship systems, and common ship equipment. When we talk about special equipment, this is for fishing trawlers or fish processing floating factories. Every equipment type is assigned with scores in proportion to the cost in the overall ship cost. Every type of ships have the total score, and by year 23, we have more comfortable conditions that can be achieved with the easier materials, and then a small part is reserved for components. But starting 2023, rules become tougher. The score number grows, and by 2023, we have this transfer period for shipyards and manufacturers to get adapted and used to the new requirements.
Значит, собственно, для всех видов.
And for all ship equipment, for all types, there are separate scores for manufacturing sites, allowing every market participants to understand the requirements they have for their product. So, and there are very clear rules of how to confirm that your product is in compliance. Another support mechanism for localization is called special investment contract that assigns preferences and privileges for manufacturers who come to localize. And we will have Dmitry from BB Marine, who will bring more details, because that's exactly the route taken by his company. These are not simple procedures. However, companies who go through them will sign this special investment contract and get a stamp made in Russia. And this is one of the criteria to get this status. First, to sign the special investment contract, then to have conclusions that you are compliant with the 719 regulation, and then there is a third step, ST1 certificate that you must achieve. Our localization center, as I said, was set up by the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and we cooperate with shipbuilding markets both locally and internationally. With diplomatic services, we participate in intergovernmental groups. And when it comes to shipbuilding, Korea is especially active under the 9 Bridges program. We will have colleagues from Comri to brief you on that. Norway, Finland are active as well in intergovernmental regulatory committees. We have regular meetings and we have B2B meetings as well to improve inter-country or international cooperation. Now to the localization sequence as we see the most optimal. You will see the roadmap on the slide. Later presentations will be available for download at the NEVA Fair website. So you have to plan in advance, and it is tied to the level of expense and the level of localization for the products that later allows you to get scores.
So we'll provide some competitive edge because this kind of equipment will be on demand first of all.
Ну, вот слайд, который обобщает те виды.
So the slide that generalizes the types of localization I've talked about. We can start from the scratch. We can buy a new enterprise, or can make set up joint venture, or make a contract manufacturing. It's clear that contract manufacturing or assembly is naturally the lowest cost production, because the Russian legal body is the most flexible and is most appropriate for the decree resolution 719 because it's the easiest way of confirming and approving all the processes, all the production process. This kind of cooperation is the optimal one. Maxim Andreevich, I think Maxim Andreevich is going to go in more details into this points because he's got great experience of cooperating with foreign companies. The advantages of localizations are apparent. This is due to volatility and actually slump of the ruble rate compared to other currencies. The production in Russia, cost of production in Russia is lower. It's power costs, actually it's workforce costs, salaries, and nobody's actually get away that in a part of marine equipment there is no big competition on the market. There's some Russian companies who've been for a long time on the market, and those who are just entering the market, but the brand grade global brand level companies also will be on demand, and it's a great actually great competitive edge. It's a good advantage. Also, you enter the market of similarity to Eurasian countries, consisting of 5 countries. It's a huge market. Eurasian actually union. You can place your equipment in other countries based on the same rules as in Russian Federation. A good example is not, we don't confine to this. So it's examples of production partnership and companies who came and built their production, Phoenix Yota. So they made a conclusion report and for the resolution 719, and everything has been approved. These are my contacts. Please call me, email, and we can answer all the questions, or we can choose the best technological partner in terms of actually tailored for your situation. So welcome to the Russian market.
Да, пожалуйста, вопросы, коллеги.
Questions from the audience.
Судовому оборудованию, да?
И материалах.
И материалах.
So materials and ship materials, but actually Resolution 719 refers not only to marine equipment, it's got wide application. And unfortunately, part of the products that's on demand in shipbuilding, I'm taking a very simple example, it's marine engines. It's got a lot wider sphere. Are you dealing with this issue? This because actually issue of implementation of this program is impossible practically. So for Western companies cannot come enter because and this was confirmed because we need just 20 of them, and it's not interesting for the company. The same goes for marine engines, for instance, diesel generators. So the volume of the market about 3,000 units a year. Even for Yaroslavsky motor factory, it's very little, and it's too little. It's not interesting. Even for domestic producers, it's not interesting. Are you dealing with this kind of integration to implement this kind of program and attract a Western partner and for engines, for marine engines, for instance? It's a very interesting question. I'll try to give an exhaustive answer. In terms of engines, we're speaking about points of localization with many foreign companies. When shaping our business plan, it turned out that localization is not profitable with this actual volume of the market. If this market capacity is currently in place, but also it's well calculated when you bring in the ready-made engine, customs duty is 0, but when you for localization, it's 7 to 15% custom duty, and then it actually eliminates the small profit that company can get here when they start localizing it. When we speak about the engine, it's a technology consuming product, and there is not much, it's not on high demand. But in terms of the work orders of the shipyards, some designs of ships go abroad because there's not enough production capacity of shipyards, and till 2035 over 1,000 ships are earmarked for building. So we needed to make the market segmentation and actually study the demand and make localization on the segments on demand. And as a center, we earmarked the problem of disbalance of bias in terms of customs duties, and we are working on these issues applicable to engines, and this Ministry of Trade and Industry support us. The things that we need to increase the custom duty for ready-made engines and bring down the custom duties for the components. And the resolution 719, in terms of resolution 719, we're trying to see the weight of their products in this point system. So we'll try to change this point system to make it more profitable. And along with engines, we've got problems with generators. No, I wouldn't say this. There are some Russian companies. So there is just one manufacturer of generators certified by Maritime and River Register of Shipping. It's a problem. And for the generators of 100 to 500 kilowatt market is very limited. It's technology consuming production. I think it's very urgent and very relevant for Zvezda, because I think it's engines and electrotechnical equipment. As for Zvezda, I heard that Wärtsilä company has been discussing the cooperation with Rosatom in terms of integration of their generators to Wärtsilä engines. It's a long-lasting procedure. I'm speaking about modern generation generators for other production, not for Wärtsilä. Let's discuss it separately. I'm aware that there are some good quality manufacturers, like Kona company, as I mentioned, they've got electrotechnical equipment production. Other questions from the audience?
Total
Maritime Services, Greece. I would like to clarify about the custom duties for some segments. Sometimes they amount to 100 and sometimes to 200%. It's one of the reasons why now the Russian and foreign ship owners actually stay away from Russian ports, because it's going crazy. None of effective localization is not possible without integration into foreign technologies and foreign components. That's the answer to some of the questions, and this part has been raised for many times. But actually, we haven't seen the representative of Customs Committee. We've addressed them for many times, repeatedly, and our company has been supplying components for shipbuilding enterprises, and situations getting from bad to worse. Maybe we need to set up some working committee with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and along with Customs Committee to hear some real proposals to minimize this bureaucratic procedure that has come to really to a crazy state. So we supply equipment, and what's going on in Russia, it's only in Saudi Arabia, it's similar, nowhere else. And the approach of Minister of Trade and Industry is also a surprise. Let's sort out the system. Let's increase the custom duties on the custom duties. So let's bring down the custom duties. Maybe we need to maybe not reduce the custom duties, but maybe we need to just to limit the all the administrative actions, because no brokers, and in other countries they don't understand why don't we do it ourselves? Why do we have these customs brokers? It's additional costs. It's they forced the fishermen to force them build ships on Russian shipyards. Due to this, the quality and the quality of the fish dropped and the prices went up. Have we got an opportunity to jointly discuss it with Minister of Trade and Industry, because economic effect for the Russian Federation is times higher. Actually, the losses are a degree of magnitude higher than the profit. Has anybody estimated and assessed the end result? So we are speaking about some formal reporting on localization. Yes, I'm ready to answer this question. Colleagues, don't confuse area of responsibility of industry of trade and industries, because industry of trade and industry is development of industry, and customs policy is financial bodies. Speaking about the bias, so what we're so much aggravated with the custom duties on components. In the framework of this work, studying the classifier system, we try to identify those critical items that are due to correction, and we have put this for 180 sheets, including ready-made products and components, and I saw 5, 7%, 12%, 18% maximum. If you want to, I can come up with an example. And if somebody make corrections and somebody will prompt, saying not custom duties, but custom costs. Whether there's some additional procedures, they bring to additional costs. So the total cost can come up to 200 to 300% of initial costs. Some warehouses, custom warehouses, and the corporation cannot bring to Novorossiya, to Russia, container with technical equipment. So the 2,000 items, and for scissors, you need to supply it with certificate of compliance. Why, after bringing to Russian Federation the scissors, well, I maybe exaggerate, but so no reasonable ship owner will be ordering these materials if he's not sure that he'll be able to operate it cost efficiently. Says, I'm ready. It's turned into a presentation, so I'm ready to personally discuss it. I hope there are no more questions. Actually, we're getting out of their time frame. So now I'm going to turn to exchange of experience and listen to the company's enterprises experience that came into localization, and the Russian companies who are cooperating with foreign companies' technological partner. And the most vivid example is work of the Russian Federation, and it's a Palfinger company. It's Valery Shavdeychik, the technical director of Palfinger Marine Rose, is going to make this presentation. Yes, I'd like to thank firstly Dmitry Olegovich, because thanks to his participation within last years, this great additional supplement to this resolution 719 was made to make clear the demand of the government from to the companies who want to start localizing their production on the territory of the Russian Federation. Actually, the resolution reflects the vision of the government of the state, but now I'll speak about how it is seen from the surface of the earth, because it's not everything is that simple as it might seem. I'll be switching the slides. Firstly, I'll speak a little bit about Palfinger, what have been doing, what we are doing, and what issues we face during localizations. So the range of products of Palfinger, it's the cranes with 30 up to 32.4-ton loading capacity, big cranes. It's telescopic. It's scoping out with and this with the compensation of motion, hoisting equipment, and gantry cranes, and unique equipment. The types of cranes and hoisters in the base sets will amount to 150 units, but thanks to modular construction of this equipment, so this range of equipment is almost limitless, which puts the limitation of what will localize in-house. Is about 800 units of cranes have been supplied and hoisting equipment. And what are we trying to do when we speak about localization? We try to answer two questions. What for and how? Because different types of customers, they require localization in different volumes. I'll speak about later on. And when I answer the first question, what for, what the customer needs, we try to answer the question how. And when for ourselves we set we receive the answer to the question, we speak about economic feasibility. If an experience, and if experience doesn't meet the minimum requirements, we don't go further. We say, we tell the customer that localization makes no sense if it's if for the Palfinger and for the customer it makes sense economically, then we act in resolutions and documents. There are 4 versions of localization starting on the left. When we supply for Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, when about 100% of Russian equipment required. The first part, another side is a civil customer that builds on its money, not on the state shipyards, and are more interested in the economy of the project and the feasibility of the project and the quality of the project, and not meeting those of that governmental resolutions. And here we meet the case when the customer prefers the import, and we can think about ST1 and its intermediate missions when we get less than 50% of import, and when we need actually the report of the legal bodies, and sometimes it can be more than 50% of import. Answering the question what for, the previous question, we go to the answer how. We came up to the current 2021. We're in good shape. We entered in good shape in Russia. We've got 3 facilities, in Russia. It's a main is Iman factory dedicated for localization. Within the last 10 years, it's been acquired by Palfinger company. It saw 16 million euro of investment into this facility. Besides modernization of the existing site, brand new complex was built in Greenfield in Ishimba. It's close to 120 kilometers from Ufa, the city of Ufa. The total volume area total area, you can see mostly it's production areas and actually the number of staff working in the facility. So actually the production capacity, we've got a plan for 2022, and we've refused some of the 100,000, so we've refused for Kamaz chassis orders for this kind of production for onshore onshore components. Then we think about what do you need for marine equipment. How many do you need at times than existing? So just gone very fast. I'll run by what the profiles have been bent and welded in the automatic mode. It's a warehouse. We've made a picture of it in winter of ready-made products. What has been done?
Here is an example of what we do for the Ministry of Defense. This was a very specific project. So that was a Karakurt, 22800 Karakurt, and we have all the necessary procedures in terms of documentation. Up to 85% of this crane parts are manufactured in Russia, and we plan to, within 2 years, to bring it up to 95%. To the left is the Austrian original Paul Finger model. To the right is the Russian crane, and they are basically identical. And in terms of dimensions, up to a millimeter, they are identical. 85% are Russian make. This is at the test stand at the factory during the test themselves. The other crane that was localized, and we had ST1 certificate signed under the previous regulation. Next crane is EM27. And we clearly understood the economic conditions. It doesn't have lots of science or metal inside. Quite cheap components were used, can be employed at any deadweight ship. So we see the demand for it in the Russian Federation. Therefore, our corporation invested into localizing this crane type. And as you see, it is almost 100% identical to its foreign analog. Then another possibility when customer wants to have the Russian-make equipment but doesn't want to comply, we have some manipulator cranes that were approved by leading designers from design institution, and here we have over 50% of imported components. The customer says wherever they want to drive the self-cost down, then they can use Russian components. All our manipulator cranes in the standard setting are supplied with hydraulics by pump stations or by Parker. Very reliable. Quite expensive, though. Even though when we have huge purchases with reduced prices from Parker that we get, customers may have limited budgets and ask to substitute Parker pump stations with Russian-make substations, and we agree. Therefore, the overall cost goes down, and we meet customer requirements to have a budget supply. However, in this case, this crane and this crane are with foreign components, as I said, with a certain localized percentage. Here, so we are taking a certain road when it comes to fishing ships. We localize this very simple crane beam. It's a very simple lifting or raising equipment. It has a winch with the electric motor, the electric control board, and the crane beam. And here we met with the new legislation, updates into 719 law. And we see that economically it is not an easy thing now. Without details, just giving you the example, a Russian electric engine that is included into quite complicated winch with the maritime register approval, it equals to the cost of the entire winch. And so the total rotating base with the rotating mechanism will grow several-fold in cost for the customer. So customers understand they know the price of foreign-make equipment produced in series in hundreds. They want to have the Russian-make equipment and meet the updated law requirement, but they want to have the same prices for the foreign-make, and they disagree with paying more, even initially at the early stages of application of this law. So this is a taboo, it's not discussed, but this is life. And also we have another full swing process. For example, this rescue equipment must be manufactured quite soon, and we will supply the documents by mid-September to the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. When we localize, we understand there are challenges. We understand the lawmakers, but the market situation is as such that Russian norm-setting equipment and regulations are different from Western. Those who are machine builders in the audience, they understand that Russian maritime register rules classify certain strength tolerances regardless of the equipment of the ship where the equipment is installed. It could be like 2.5 and higher, based on the lifting capacity. DNV, they have this strength limit impacted strongly by the ship type. So this margin of safety for a small ship with larger swings will have different margin of safety for crane to, let's say, big ship. So DNV has a better fine-tuning when it comes to the margin of safety related to equipment, and it is a more precise use of materials and the calculation of metal intensity of equipment. That's for starters. Then other thing was already worded by colleagues. There are no identical materials and components. So we just can't replace the foreign engine from a small winch with the Russian make. They are all different in terms of modes of operations, dimensions, etc. Beneficial for them to introduce changes into their series models. Another very telling example is the use of super strong steels in equipment. So our equipment use Weldix or former Hardix steels, starting with the class 450, 650 up to 1100, considering the required limits. In Russia, there are no steel grades like that. There are less strong, for example, MMK, Mitchell. However, when it comes to lead times and supply, they do not meet the high demand of high capacity production. For example, star welders can be bended into the rectangular shape, and it works with telescopic cranes. Russian steel requires some working, setting up of skidding surfaces, which makes such steel more expensive, and it takes extra time. So having good grades allows to reduce the metal weight and the ultimate customer cost. So with Russian steels, it is a reverse story. Then there are requirements for foreign manufacturing practices, so-called work culture. I will give you a joke, but that's from real time. We supply a set of documents to the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and you have 2 certificates for processes. Machine builders understand why these making processes were required for factories when they manufactured single-type projects. And then their staff would meet a challenge for the first time, and they had to have controls or to have a certain roadmap. But foreign companies have different Paul Finger and Iman do not have processes like this. Their staff is trained first, and then they operate at the production floor. But the Chamber of Industry and Commerce needs these documents, and now we have to provide descriptions of them, because that's their standard rules. And however, these papers, once generated, will be put into the trash bin because they are not needed in the production. This is quite a vivid example of how our manufacturing culture is different. And let us remember Sergei's slide with the huge number of ship types and the total number of ships. Well, these figures exist somewhere in the vacuum. This is the plan allowing us to develop the business development plan. We see that things may change both globally and domestically, but to have this plan that by 2023 that about 10 icebreakers will be built, and the certain number of supply ships. So once it's done, then manufacturers will do lower-level business plans, and they could already provide for costs to be incurred across several years. And it can be incorporated into their own development plans. This summary. Palfinger has been operating in Russia for quite some time. So we are engaged in localization, and we plan to continue it. We signed the memorandum with OSK, but the deadline, year 23-24, mildly say unrealistic. We would say so. We won't be able to seriously and deeply localize, and by 23 we see that these deadlines will slip down, or the recently published rule will be once again updated. Thank you very much, Vladimir Valerievich. Thank you for your interesting presentation. Thank you for sharing your interesting experience when it comes to working process with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, because they require this document. There will be a specialized meeting with them, so starting 2 o'clock today. So raise your questions there. with the representative of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Good morning.
Вопрос заключается в следующем.
My question. Introduce yourself. Pavel Petrov from Vineta.
Послушав вас,
I was a bit surprised by your presentation, being a machine builder myself. Here is my question. You claimed that Palmfinger is localizing because pushed by the customer, and it's cumbersome and it's a burden because you have to substitute assemblies that are not available in Russia. You mentioned the pump station and engines in the dimensions and types that do not exist in Russia. So, and manufacturers are not interested in starting these manufacturing because of low series. Why don't you engage in manufacturing such equipment and then supplying it abroad? Because you work both in Asia, Europe, and America. Thank you for your question. Let me repeat that we are not pushed into localizing. We localize where the customer demands us. Are you interested in Palmfinger as the company? Well, if we were not interested, then we would not have entered Russia in 2011 and would not have invested this serious money, which I showed in my presentation. We could have continued just supply. The volume of the Russian and demand in the Russian market is no way compared to the global consumption and demand, and that impacts seriously the product cost and to possibility and impossibility of localizing certain things. Example, we have a factory at Moribor, and they are specialized within the global order for supply of manipulated cranes, and they provide hundreds of units per annum. And for example, to cater for customer needs, we have electric cutiferous coating. So it means to avoid painting of cranes. Russian demand, as I said, we have 20 to 30 cranes per annum. So if we purchase this equipment, it will not be a return on investment. Therefore, we must care for, you have to balance the necessity and economic sense. To answering your question, so the quality here is a bit different. Pump station and hydraulics by Parker, they are different things. As I said, in the Russian Federation, it is very difficult to find an analog for them. Electric engines, electric motors could have been substituted in Russia. Well, Russian electric engines could have been supplied to, for example, Slovenia. But I'm not so I wouldn't say that foreign customers will be happy to buy cranes with Ural Electromans engines. So you would say that there is no good reputation for Russian equipment globally, and you are not interested in developing Russian equipment. Well, I would say you may phrase it this way. I would say that foreign customers are not ready to buy it. They don't want to buy it. Iman factory, about 30% of their metal structures manufactured here. They are for land equipment exported, and quality by Iman allows to export. But that's their own factory, and Palmfinger may in fact audit their quality, and we can have a say in both lead times and production cost. Your FSA colleagues, FSA group, they are finalizing localizing one of their product in car mating, and 719 law is tougher on car manufacturing, and 75% of PCA engines are exported not in France, but to Latin America, Far East, Vietnam, where Polfinger is also present. You may do the same, assuring the quality control, because as the customer, you have the right for this. Greenfast also came to Russia, and they put up a huge complex near Moscow, and the Russian engine motor works only for Grünfuss. And for Russian-made equipment, Grünfuss places their engines, and Western customers buy it. Can you explain the difference? In fact, just 2 more questions because we slipped down the schedule.
Да, вот у вас микрофон.
Я представлюсь, Антипов Алексей.
I am Antipov Alexei, first deputy director for marine systems. We localize compressors. Just a little bit to the challenges what we face. Components are the main challenge. You have to find good components, and these components then also must be listed in the register of products manufactured in Russia. Let's say we found an electric engine, but it's not on the list. This factory works since 1992, but however, it is not considered by the Russian score system as Russian. So we found electric engine, so we adapt our components to fit. At the purchase date, it is part of the register, but when we supplied documents to the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, however, then the certificate expires, and it's no longer considered to be the Russian engine, and we lose scores.
Немного уточню, извините.
So I'll clarify a bit. The procedure of prolonging the conclusion is not that much labor consuming. So if within a year you don't change any thing, you can apply with the previous documents. Work with the producer, with the manufacturer. I think they're adequately will adjust themselves to your demands, and they'll actually extend this resolution. This says, as a machine builder, I can ask you a question. You have seen a lot of equipment on this slide. What has been manufactured in Russia? The crane manipulators or hoisting. I clarify. If I, as a shipbuilder, I buy with a straight boom crane, I will get points because it's not localized. Yes, I'm answering. We are going the 4 paths, and for instance, about 50%. But the cranes were made because Iman is specialized on manipulator cranes, and it was expedient to do this, and we had the report. And we had the beam crane, and ST1 certificate was produced. Again, it's economic expedience, it's practicability. There are 2 sets of them, 2 units. We wouldn't have gone for this, and it was a contract with Damen for very clear volumes, and with the prospects, we agreed to that. But so far, we are not running current works. We've got plans, we've got ideas, but it's economic practicability and nothing else. Thank you. So I'll be short. So, have you mentioned? It says a court without military representative at Palfinger Marine. Initiative R&D was run not by Palfinger Marine. We were running our with official dealer. It's got this military exception trials, and he is responsible for that. Palfinger supplies the components, and he is the performer. In our country, we've got law 114. Nice slide. Have you met the commission? So how was that? For exception test, we've got the standard that says that an enterprise initiative way can supply certain equipment and without inviting anybody. Because somebody who's making sausages, he launched something. He can't invite all the customers, but there are some technical requirements written. When we open the package with sausages, we can see the technical requirements. And in the framework of these technical requirements, we invited, in the framework of technical requirements, we invited the representatives to our enterprise, and we ran certain trials. The customers and the designers, they understand what a Palfinger is. They've been operating with our equipment, for instance, 24/7. They understand where they were going and what they were looking at. And actually, we approved it with relative bodies. Magic Palfinger gives as an interesting, as a technical person, how the quality of the surface affects the power. I know that Valdek's strength, it hasn't got the register. How could you? It's approved by the register. It's 960 steel. There is requirements of for its strength, for its yield strength requirements, and so on. It's got nothing to do with the topic of this seminar. Thank you. Thanks for your presentation.
Перейдем к следующему докладчику.
We turn to the next. Dmitry Milyakin, the ABB Marine Development Manager. He'll speak a process of prospects of localization. Our colleagues are going this way, but we'll get the results shortly. Not more than 15 minutes, please.
Во-первых, позвольте поблагодарить за
First, thanks for inviting me.
вашему вниманию.
So I want to speak about a specialized topic. It's about specialized investment projects topic. This is in topics of shipbuilding and machine building. None of the special contract has been implemented. We are the pathfinders. So the experience we've obtained might be of interest. So if I will fail to fit everything on my presentation to 15 minutes, and I'm ready to answer the questions. I'll speak about my company and explain why we use this Speak to 2.0 localization type of speech. Maybe not everybody knows about it, but we've got 120 years of history on the Russian market. And it's electrotechnical equipment of all kinds of types. I represent the segment of marine production industry. It's shipbuilding and seaports. I'll speak about localization of marine fit-out equipment that ABB Marine has acquired. What we manufacture for ships, the wide range. So actually propulsion system, azipod systems, which is our actually brand mark. Everybody knows about this. But the rest is also can be supplied from the bridge down to the propeller screw. It's almost well-known product, well-known Russia. It's Azipod with electric drive Azipod. Azipod is our brand without copyright.
Колонка достаточно сложный такой
So
изделие.
you see this Azipod is a complex product containing of different elements, but it's got a number of advantages compared with mechanical systems. It's optimum resolution for high ice class ships, which is required for operation in northern conditions and in conditions of the Far East for Sakhalin projects as well. ABB supplied this kind of systems for about 100 high ice class ships. We've got about 15 million work hours, and none of the ice failures of our units have been fixed. But some accidents happen. We're not saints, but there's been no ice failures, ice accidents. And all main Russian ship owners are using equipment. Almost all of them are using our company equipment. Now I'm turning why we have chosen this specialized investment contractor. Since of May 2021, the president approved the changes of the code of commercial seafaring. You can see this big list. It will mean that all the ship owners will consider only the Russian-built ships. Actually, there is one remark. It doesn't refer to the ships that have already been built, or those who have been ordered before this code came into effect. And also, there is a 6-year-old resolution that shares this criteria of the compliance of the production as a specialized investment contract, this expertise of Russian Federation bodies. It's actually supplement to 716 resolution. It was included, and we're speaking about sausages. Well, the ST1, you need to get it. So the three criteria that are actually important for us in May this year. In another resolution, there was a actually amendment to a resolution 716, and it's been mentioned about the point system, but some criteria were actually a little bit amended for Azipod, for instance, and one of the most important products. And using the example of Azipod, we used this specialized investment contracts. It's on the right part of this slide. You can see the requirements. The main conditions are the requirement of assembly of this azimuthal thruster on the territory of the Russian Federation, and it has been Dmitry Alexeyevich mentioned about the components. We've been made a search of the component supplies. It's actually specified in this resolution, and we've got some pilot contracts for the supplies. If we refer to the presentation of Mr. Stoyanov, that bring in all the components for assembly are subject to high custom duty. So we are interested in producing as many components, fit-out components as possible. Also, another requirement, existence of the service network in the Church of the Russian Federation, and we've met this requirement. We've got this network working on the territory. SPIC is what's a tool, specialized investment contract. It's a specialized agreement with investors. It's between a foreign investor and the government. And a foundation of industry developments. It's Minpромtorg body prepared this slide, and it's mediator for this body is a mediator for the ministry, and this body can explain everything you need. And it's got an electronic system that all this kind of Spec-Invest contract is run. As I'm later in time, and I'm not going to read all the slides. So the Invest actually promises to introduce new technology, and the government actually promises to provide support during the year. And actually the responsibilities of the investor and the state. The target is creating certain volume of production, creating certain number of workplaces, and the government, the state, commits to provide stimulating aspects. There's 6 types of them. It's tax benefits, it's a status made in Russia. For us, subsidization measures, amortization, simplified access to state order, in other words. As we assemble and test this as opposed are not the most important. For us, the first 2 measures are important. Is tax reliefs and status made in Russia, and it runs for 3 years. Next day after signing this document, and after 3 years, the subject, the state, the subject needs to check to what extent the commitments of the investor have been met. And this, so the main measures, the main is some support measures is tax benefits and status made in Russia. And it's if you sign the agreement with the Russian Federation, is in face the person of Minister of Trade and Industry, the criteria of localization will be those who are acting, the acting ones. In case of the exacerbation, it will not going to deal with this SPIC, this contract. So within 3 years, we need to meet the requirements that were in effect at the moment of signing the contract. So what refers to tax reliefs, tax benefits, not exacerbation of tax requirements. So during the contract terms, based on the effective requirements at the moment of the signing the contract. If the investors working in the tours in the this actually advanced in advanced development areas, you cannot sum up these actually benefits if you get some other benefits in this area. So besides these federal measures, there's regional measures. I'm not going to run down all of them because I've got the time limit. If if one wants to learn more about it, I can email this presentation to him or check with the organizers. So actually, algorithms, monitoring of legislation, the second, and inclusion in the list of modern technologies. And it's a complex thing, and then I'll show it in the next slide. It's about the complaints for those who want to conclude a speak agreement. And then the list of the modern technology should be prevailing. It's a complex procedure, and using this state information system, you need to do it, but we managed to do it. The third thing is approval by the region and by the local authorities and the deputies, maybe not state executive bodies, but the deputies. And actually, it's a time and nerve-consuming project, and it's not always smooth, these approvals. So we've completed all these 3 stages, the degree. But there's some difficulties. Then we apply to the proposal to Minprom, and then there is a tender, and there is a conclusion of this contract. And the document is big, and there is a tens of pages, a big document. So actually applying application requires a lot of model and business plan, also some attached attachments, a lot of report documentation. So it's a huge package of documents. So here I'm showing this. So it's an interface of application and apply for Minprom. And they actually apply they employ the expert. They make the positive report, and actually the procedure is completed. So our technology is included at number 628 in the governmental resolution. So we're happy about that. I mentioned this actually. The subject of Russian Federation, the entity of Russian Federation, who is responsible, some bodies who have to provide monitoring at SPIC 2.0. It's actually it's updated version of SPIC 2.0 because initially was SPIC 1.0, and this one is a little bit different. Actually, it's a bulky monitoring program. I'm not going to dwell on it because of the time limits. Everybody's speaking. If I'm asked, so it can be a question. If the speaker is so good, why doesn't everybody use it? So there's some risks. So I want to remind you, there's plenty of paperwork, that we need to formalize. So we just studied, so we don't know what undercurrents are going to be met. We don't know. So, so the good news is that the investor has got certain limits of liability. So to actually compensate the real costs, and only within the framework of the stimulation. So there some benefits were provided, and the investor didn't met the requirements. Then he'll just need to compensate these benefits and maybe some fine. And also there is 248 resolution. And Actually, the SPIC can be terminated without any liability of the investor. It can be some force majeure, some disaster, something in the area of SPIC implementation. I fit into 15 minutes as was promised. So I'm ready to answer all your questions.
Any questions from the audience? Thank you very much for your very interesting and full of content report. So we supplied ship propellers for over 25 years for your company. I'm Pavel Orlov. I understand now you have enough market to sell your products. So though your company is under sanctions, international sanctions, you refused now buying our components, and you claim that we are under sanctions. So can we renew our cooperation? This will be a good localization example. I understand your question. I get this question regularly, and my answer will be the same. So I and my colleagues cannot impact certain processes. We value your company's Zvezdochka for many years of cooperations. We indeed had good results of our cooperation. We really want to renew and hope that someday it will be revived. But this is out of scope of my influence. So, and I cannot predict. I'm not a fortune teller. I cannot predict the future. We understand that this is above your capacity to impact the situation. We want to see whether governmental authorities see the ways how we can participate. In fact, this is a typical situation not only for us, but for many Russian companies who were successful in cooperating with foreign companies, but now they experience these same challenges, and everyone is displeased and wants to go back to how it was before sanctions. And the state is interested in full-scope, full-fledged cooperation. All of the speakers today were saying the same thing. Certain components, certain component types will not be manufactured in Russia in the foreseeable future, in the nearest future. And then the previous speaker said that certain things make no economic sense. And there are political demands, but companies will not work to become bankrupt, and to incur losses. Sorry that I couldn't provide a better answer for you. Andrei Mikhailin, the Sapphire plant, Sapphire company, we are your competitors and we are your colleagues in localization. I share your view on challenges as you describe them. We want to cooperate with wider companies when it comes to manufacturing components and localizing, but we face restrictions. Working with SPIC, you gave us an interesting example, and we can in fact share your experience. In fact, I started my presentation saying that some of you may value our small experience of how to join this procedure and document SPIC. My question is, so is it correct that can we read your document? Ours hasn't been signed yet, and it's a confidential document anyway because it contains prices. It will never be in public domain. It is a secret technology, so you have to use passwords and keys to enter into the procedure. So confidentiality is observed. The last question.
Добрый день.
Good morning. Dmitry Sosnurin, Potok Altodex. Thank you for your interesting presentation.
Спика.
Within SPIC,
Вы тоже
so you and colleagues from Sapphire localize propeller thruster, rudder thruster. Do you plan to localize the frequency converter? Let us remember what the previous speaker said. Customer may have certain needs pushed by certain circumstances, like Law 719. They demand the Russian-make product. So, and there are certain criteria to qualify a product as a Russian-make. So, Law 719 and its appendices. When it comes to frequency converters, there are criteria for ships, for Russian ships. There is a requirement. There is so far no requirement that these converters shall be Russian. So you can score it with points, but there is no requirement to have Russian-make frequency converters. So ship owners, therefore, have free hands, and we understand that ship owner through the shipyard can order any equipment set in this respect. And remember the score system discussed today. Though there are some ethical issues. For example, we value our competitors. We know that our frequency converters, and they're unique in running parallel with rudders, because with other rudders we do not guarantee, with other frequency converters, we do not guarantee the correct work. So the customer will will order the converters with us, but then it will get to the required score through other components. Having the score system is good in this respect because ship owners will select the set which the best meets the ship type, its objective, and reliability requirements. Certain localized elements will be picked up to get the required score, but the most important parts will be purchased abroad. And this is the exact objective for the scoring system. My question is, are there any risks that
Ну вот, например, 4.2.0.
For example, 2.2.2.0 icebreaker still face this challenge with the frequency converter. And we are afraid that, for example, you localize the rudder propeller, but then it will not have the Russian-make frequency converter. Let me narrow the field. For the next coming years, several years, we do not plan to localize frequency converters. Thank you. Let us applaud the speaker. Thank you very much, Dmitry Vladimirovich. It was very interesting. Because we have this time difference, I suggest that we give the floor to our Korean colleagues, and they will explain the 9 bridges roadmap and more about the cooperation with Russian shipbuilders and research institutes. And at SNI course, together with Komory, I have the Russian-Korean Center for Maritime Technologies. And our colleagues were very kind to describe this work, and I invite the Zoom speaker online.
Поддержки бизнеса, команда международных стандартов, Комори, Бами.
Здравствуйте.
Good morning. This is Bomijon working at Komari as a team leader under Department of Business Support and Korea Russia Marine Equipment Center. First of all, thank you for inviting me to today's conference, especially Mr. Dmitry. I hope that all participating companies can share useful information through this conference. Then let's give a presentation. I'm going to give a speech for enhancing cooperation between Komari and cruise. Here's the content. First, I'm going to explanation of implementation of line bridge first step in the field of shipbuilding. The main goal of line bridge, the first step in the field of shipbuilding, is building ice-breaking energy carrier for polar travel and constructing shipyard. Korea Shipbuilding Company had achieved ship orders of 15 LNG carried ship of Yamal project ahead of Nine Bridge operation. And based on synergy effect of Nine Bridge implementation plan, both countries have achieved notable results regarding Arctic LNG 2 project in Russia. Especially Samsung Heavy Industry has expanded its capabilities as a technology partner of Spetsnaz Shipyard. Under the line bridge first policy of both countries, Komari has been playing the role of the Korea-Russia Maritime Equipment Center by promoting local seminars in Russia, consultation meetings with customers, and cooperation projects at the Spetsnaz Shipyard. In addition to this, Komari has been continuously working on the Korea-Russia Maritime Equipment Center, including meetings with the Russian trade representative, business consultation, technical seminars, and visits by the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Saha. Although face-to-face promotion has been suspended since COVID-19, we are continuing to cooperate with crews. Next is Nine Bridge Shipbuilding 2, Step 2 in shipbuilding. The main goal of Nine Bridge Shipbuilding Step 2 are set in 3 areas: shipbuilding cooperation, shipbuilding technology cooperation, and professional manpower exchange. In the field of cooperation between shipbuilding, Korea has excellent shipbuilding capabilities, and in particular in the field of energy polo-operated ships, it is expected that it will lead to cooperation in equipment and materials between the two countries in response to Russian demand. For the purpose, we plan to develop a cooperative project for the production of marine equipment between the two countries to expand cooperation and to share and discuss information for the creation of a Russian shipbuilding cluster. In addition, in relation to shipbuilding technology cooperation, it is needed that joint research and pilot projects for R&D and cooperation in organization joint programs such as design and manufacture of advanced robots for energy technology and detection and rescue at sea, and unmanned navigation control system, remote control unmanned underwater units, electric propulsion system, etc. We plan to conduct joint development feasibility study too. Lastly, in relation to the exchange of professional manpower, the need for a joint program to support manpower in both countries was raised. The operation of mutual internship programs could be discussed in both countries to share their experiences in shipbuilding field. Instead, I would like to introduce the Korea-Russia Marine Equipment Center, which Komari is in charge of, and its future plan. Currently, Komari is operating the Korea-Russia Marine Equipment Center. In the past, Korea had difficulties entering the Russian market due to the lack of information on the Russian shipbuilding and offshore industry, and barriers to entry such as partner selection and languages. So Russia also promoted the establishment of the Korea-Russia Marine Equipment Center in response to changes in the environment in neighboring countries such as Europe, increased demand in Russia, and increased demand for cooperation with Korea of equipment and materials. So in September 2018, the two countries signed an agreement to establish the center. And in June 2019, along with the 9th Korea-Russia Industry Cooperation Committee held between the two countries, the Russian Center was first opened at the Cruise Research Center in Moscow, Russia. In August the same year, the center was opened in Komari, located in Busan. The main purpose of the two centers is to establish a foundation for cooperation in the Korean-Russian shipbuilding and offshore industry and to promote entry into the Russian market. The main developed task of the Korea-Russian Marine Equipment Center included categories such as identification of Russian government policy, support for localization of shipbuilding equipment, cooperation with the Spetsnaz Yard, joint research and development of Arctic Sea route. The items to be promoted are the separately market policy of the Russian government, support for the localization of shipbuilding equipment, and joint research and development. This year, Komari and Cruise are collaborating on the following tasks. First of all, information exchange and practical cooperation between two countries will be specified through an international joint conference. In addition, Komari is in the process of producing an integrated brochure with Korean companies wishing to enter Russian market and will be uploaded to the Russian website with the help of Cruise as soon as it is completed. Lastly, we are planning international joint R&D regarding autonomous ship and standard design of ship. In this regard, we are looking for proper Russian partner companies, and we are collaborating with Cruise. Key indicator for step 2 of 9 bridge in shipbuilding were selected by the government of both Korea and Russia, and both countries need step-by-step cooperation point to achieve goals in the relevant field. To this end, Komari is ready to engage with the Cruise and should increase the participation of equipment companies and research institute in each country to achieve productive research. Thank you for listening. Спасибо.
Госпожа Боми, спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Balme,
Спасибо за интересный доклад.
for your very interesting presentation. And I will just add some words that Kurs Komari Center is open to support any Russian or foreign company. Just contact us and we will be ready to assist you. Russian companies interested in cooperation with Korean companies may contact Kurs, and together with the help of Komari, we will find suitable partners for you. We will organize B2B meetings, and we will support your cooperation. And it works in the opposite direction. If there are Korean companies interested in cooperating with Russian companies, so please approach Komari. Thank you very much. Bomi.
Следующий докладчик Сунозов Максим Андреевич.
Our next speaker is Mr. Sunozov Maxim. He will share localization experience as a technological partner.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to make a presentation and get this information through to our foreign partners and potential suppliers. How can I start the presentation?
Нет, я скинул на электронку, вы сохранили там.
Actually, I downloaded it. I actually uploaded it on the email.
Компания судостроения, судоремонт.
It's a shipbuilding, ship repair company. Maybe you send it. Maybe then the next Natalia Schneider Group, Natalia Gennadievna Vilke, General Director of Schneider Group on policy in substitution and legal aspects of localization of ship fit out equipment production. So we're a consulting company, and we consult the companies who come here in terms not on issues of localization, not only in shipbuilding, but many others. It can be medical, healthcare, and pumps and others. I'd like to speak about why it is so topical for many companies. So what steps are to be taken to get the product, the label made in Russia? So it's been already mentioned before me. It was practical examples. A practical case was shown why the localization is in need and why this question pops up. So first of all, the customer requires to have the supplies to be of Russian origin. If there get some import limitation of the products, also trigger this production in Russia. Also purchase, but these are negative points. But there are positive points, like there are some benefits if you are supplied to other countries like Georgia, Armenia, Belarus. Made in Russia doesn't mean necessarily that it's considered to be made in Russia. This has Russian origin is it's required to meet certain legally required legal requirements. So how to get the status? The question: how to get the status made in Russian? So can you comply with localization requirements? So get some economic, maybe economically or technically difficult. And does the market have enough volume to make it expedient and reasonable? What are the limitations in terms of state governmental purchase? So there are in the 2020 there were new resolutions, some were combined resolutions, and they're in the areas of activity like automotive industry, lighting industry, pharmaceutical, software, heavy equipment, others. But there are some areas where this potential localization is implied. There's 22 areas of activity, including shipbuilding industry. So we are going the path that there'll be more and more practical use of this localization requirements. You know, there is a code of commercial seafaring requirement, and also there is a reference to governmental resolution that requires that. So you can foresee this kind of trend. What are the limitations for number of products? There is ban on purchasing foreign products. There is a price preference of Russian goods compared to the foreign ones. So if you offer the Russian and the foreign product at the same price, it will be actually valued cheaper, and so you can get something 20%. So and the foreigners, this 15%, they lose this 15%. So they need initially offer cheaper products. The third one is outer rule. tells that if the foreign bidder cannot take part in the bidding if there are some Russian and EU produce. And actually, in terms of state purchases, all the 4 points are working. In terms of state capital companies purchase, 2 and 4, it's price preference, restriction, and preliminary approval technical characteristics, technical specifications. But sometimes it's it can use the many large state-owned companies, and the purchase documentation additionally impose prohibition of purchase of foreign goods. Starting June 2022, they'll have this point system, and we've got increase of rate of these points. And by 2025, are the target requirements for the ship it can reach to become marked as made in Russia. So I decided to dwell on more practical cases and components. So for ships, there is another requires registration in the EU. It's a technical limitation for 5 years, and performance of certain technological operations and use of certain materials from EU for manufacturing, use of components manufactured in the EU for the ship to become Russian-made. And so there's components, lifeboats, they've got 45 boats, shaft line, we're speaking about Azipod, 350 points, and also so like rudder propellers, 150 points, main power plant, 500 points, and so on. So it's so the 3 options where there's actually the resolution 719 that's been referred to, which is a lot of documents, and it's been grown bigger and bigger, and there are a lot of amendments, supplements, sometimes it just become outdated. And actually there are appendices to the governmental resolution 719, and sometimes we use the version 2. It's a CS countries document, that old version that actually verifies the origin of the components. And we speak about the change of the first 4 figures, and said that the product was reworked, and also there were some price cost related changes in terms of the origin of production of a product. And then special investment contract, this was taught, and the specifics allows to consider Russia, the product is made in Russia, but it's not immediately, but step by step as it was approved in the contract. Let's say depending on the method used, the first and the second method applied for your product, it all can be confirmed by the Expert Assessment Act, and you have to submit it to Ministry of Trade and Industry for confirmation that the product has got a Russian origin. But it's issued for 1 year. This confirmation is issued for 1 year. So you need to collect the documents annually and not to miss out this deadline. For the Resolution 719, it's for the thrusters. What's the criteria of localization? So need to use metal produced in Eurasian Economic Union, produced in EU. So a blank production, heat treatment, mechanical restoration, welding, assembly of a product should be performed on the territory of Russia or EU country. And after sale service center in the territory one of EU. It refers to a certain product. So for CS, it's more grounded and down to earth requirements. So it's for material. It refers to materials. But all things are in 719 resolution described. So the VAT should be 50% of the compared to the original material, plastic in this case. All plastic material should be not exceed 20% in the overall material of the end product. Aluminum products also the requirements, all the material should be classified in the items different from the item or the product.
Про СПИК не буду останавливаться, да?
I'm not going to dwell on SPIC. Now, starting 2020, it acts only referring to certain advanced technologies that are on the list. If it's not on the list, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. You immediately just add up the list, and so you can on order of the state order, the tender is started, or on the request of the investor. It takes a nerve. It's for big size companies, but it gives stability in terms of tax rates and other terms. And if you comply with the localization requirements, you can do it step by step and not at once. It imposes certain liabilities on the investor. And the final stage, it's approval in Ministry of Trade Industry that's issued for 1 year based on a Tier 1 certificate or act in Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I've got some instructions, and they're regulating acts and what additional requirements are used, or they're going to check and test. But our practice shows that additional coordination is required, and sometimes they make audit visits, and there is some technological side, and they can request, they can visit this technological site or require some documents. So you have to confirm it all in details, and all these nice things last for 1 year. So about ourselves, we're not a Schneider Electric. So Schneider's like Dom Pedro in Brazil. We're a consulting company. We've got 500 experts in Russia and offices. And I'm a lawyer dealing with this for 22 years, dealing with localizations for our clients, and we provide business support as an office on entering the market and localization. Actually, it's a payable, it's on payable basis, unlike Dmitry Olegovich. So in terms of shipbuilding, in the components, there have been any applications? Those applications for the equipment for shipbuilding. So investment there says the market and supply for different kind of industry, for food industry, for shipbuilding. Shipbuilding is 80%. They're not localized in Russia, and they're they're assessing whether they need to localize it. So they head company in Germany, they figure what kind of level of localization required, because what kind of lines they need to bring in to Russia, and how all the valves and things, and so not just pain. So they can address us as shipbuilding experts, so we can answer your questions. Are there questions from the audience? No, no. Thanks a lot.
Максим Андреевич, как у вас презентация?
Andrej, how's it going with you? Is your presentation? So we have already introduced you a company in ship repair. My name is Maxim Smozov, I'm General Director. I'm speaking about experience of localization equipment in Russia with our partner in Turkish. So how we were dealing with the hoisting equipment. Some data, company data, company started in 2015, 16 implemented projects. We're working with all main facilities in Russia. So we're 91 pieces of our own equipment. We've got our production shops and the design office, 70 strong staff, in-house staff, and also we work on contractors. And we guarantee safety of our equipment during operation in extreme conditions. We started producing with the ships for hovercrafts for Russian and foreign customers. We're talking about different types of localization, specialized contract. It's like an ABB, but with a small size and middle-sized business, for us it was the best way for us was to find the partner, and a partner found us as the partner, and we got this kind of cooperation, so we can recommend it. Required to find a reliable production process partner in terms as well as long-term international cooperation. We're speaking not only about localization in Russia, certain type of equipment, but further on we'll carry on developing in this country and other countries, and for export to other countries. What are the minuses? So during localization, the components that come, they go into one unit, like the thrust or a crane. All the equipment has to come. Can be has a certificates of classification society, so it has to have some tests. The second minus, you have to have the conclusion from Minprom of the lack of analogs from Russia. So we've acquired some foreign engine. Then we need to go through the procedure of Minprom that there are no analogs in Russia, and it's very time-consuming procedure. And so we've been working with military customers till now. The procedure of approval for military wasn't approved by Minprom, but now it looks like it was involved, and so we'll be looking at the third one. Is the foreign partner needs to be able to transfer all the design and documentation of all the units and to Russia. And we sign all NDA, but the foreign partner needs to manage the process. All the authorized assembly will be run by Russian specialists, because sometimes foreign specialists can't enter Russia very fast because they need to get a lot of papers. But with joint work, our specialists, after undergoing training, we can adjust everything here. And the second plus is advantage during the tender biddings about 15-20% of discount. That plus we get the compliance with 719 governance resolution that let us accumulate points, and the customers look about those producers that give this resolution. Also, you can supply for naval ships. We're speaking about civil ships, but there's a market of naval ships, and they've got costly products that might be interesting to produce with foreign partners in Russia. And the partner is ready to enter Russia is another plus is diversification of its production assets. If he enters into the Russian market, he can enter with money, and he'll be acquiring assets in Russia for further production.
So here is an example of crane localization, 8 tons. A huge preliminary work was done. So the development of design document package meeting the maritime register requirements, and as well as the control body from Defense Ministry, welding, both documents, process itself, and staff training, rigging, and test stand, design and construction, and selection of the test field. As my colleague from Polfinger said, they are not interested in single projects in Russia, but we believe this is an advantage for our company. This time we can grow together while cooperating with foreign partners. All our products were internally tested, fittings, pipes, and special labs. Every crane unit was approved and tested by the register, and we've got the proper documents. We have final tests with 3 register representatives for electrics and hydraulics, and Gostechnadzor was also present. The crane, after all the approvals, is being successfully operated at a Far Eastern ship. This is a real-life story. A Turkish provider provided us with the technology and a set of documents adapted in Russia. So we manufactured the foundation and welding, and from Turkey we received components adopted by the register, the winch, hydraulic station, and some other. This is the assembled thing. I repeat, if a technological partner picks up a company similar to ours, dynamic and developing, so then that's a good choice for such a company to develop in Russia, and with our assistance become the international holding and then develop to other countries. We have a contract signed with Indonesia and Portugal to setting joint ventures for marine cranes and hovercrafts, and we are having negotiations with 4 more countries with the help of the Russian Ministry for Industry and Trade. The Russian market is clear. 1,000 ships must be built, but there are international markets, and together, uniting our efforts with foreign partners, we can come to other countries. I'm done. This is our contact list, Facebook and social media of Contacti. Sign up to our pages. Follow us. Well, how do you plan to select your technological partners based on products or brands? For us, Dmitry Olegovich, we determined products, hoisting equipment and systems, and working with the course center. We set up meetings with partners who are close in spirit to us and who are ready to develop together. Thank you for your interesting presentation. Questions?
Виктор, Морской Петербург. Спасибо за...
Victor Zucker from the Maritime St. Petersburg magazine. You mentioned the hovercraft market, that you entered it. I'm interested in the local market. It's quite a big market because we have geographies like tundra where it is useful. What about international supplies? We've just signed a contract with Portugal and Indonesia for setting joint ventures. One hovercraft was shipped to Indonesia. It's in transit currently. And we have a local Indonesian partner. Once the ship arrives, this hovercraft is to be tested with the committee made of customers. And we see prospects working with Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. They have and wild shores where the crafts can be used. In addition, there is a cluster in Malaysia and Singapore for shipbuilding, and we plan to deliver our shipborne equipment as well. Any more questions? Thank you.
В заключение хотелось бы...
To finalize, let us talk about a very important aspect for localization. Here I mean translation, professional translation, with the accent, with the focus given on shipbuilding. I give the floor to Alexeyeva Elena, the Deputy Director for Translation Center at the at EGA Translating Company. So I welcome the strongest in the audience who stayed till the end. I work for EGA Translating Company that has been at the translation interpretation services market for 30 years. We offer all linguistic support necessary for the market participants. It's been our 30 years at the market, and we've worked with foreign partners. And shipbuilding translation is one of our parts. Please launch my presentation. I don't see my presentation.
Это и была презентация.
Here is your presentation with our logo.
Не хочет переключаться.
The clicker doesn't work.
Следующий слайд, и можно об этом уже сегодня очень много.
We talked a lot about the outlooks for foreign and Russian manufacturers of ship equipment that can be achieved through localization. When you plan to legalize, whichever, in whatever country, even outside of Russia, when you just develop the strategy of penetrating a different market, there are many challenges to consider in terms of legal framework, customs regulations, and currency regulations. You think of certificates and licenses, and you forget very often about culture specifics of your target country and the huge amount of translation required. Intercultural communications becomes a subject matter studied at schools. So the base is in specifics of communication between different nations. Gest Herbsubs, who was the founder of the international or intercultural competition, claims that we not only speak, but we feel and think with an accent, because we acquired this accent in our childhood, in the location where we grew. It depends a lot, our mentality, on where and when we were raised. So knowing about it for yourself and knowing it about for your partners, we can successfully negotiate. There were previous speakers who cooperated with Chinese and Korean partners. They will support me, saying that dialogues with Asian cultures is different to Russian dialogues. Well, though these cultures are somewhat similar in certain aspects to the Russian culture, knowing your partner's culture will allow to adapt your product for the target audience. In this respect, if we talk about ship components, it's a product to be sold. Intercultural communication requires the knowledge of the specifics. We must train our staff. Zvezdochka plant is a case in point. At their workshops, there are both. This is not Zvezdochka, Zvezda. There are both Korean and Russian staff.
Выстраивать обучение персонала, который...
You have to train your staff. And if your staff is international, you have to know their specifics. We are different from our Korean partners. I love this theme. If a Korean teacher doesn't touch the student, then he will not get the answer to his questions.
В том, что в наша компания уже 3 года...
Our company, we run webinars in Russian with the assistance of the Chamber for Industry and Commerce for Norway, for the United Arab Emirates. We run these webinars to explain Russian mentality, and it is in English. For Russian companies, we offer such workshops in Russian.
Ах, извините. Если мы говорим о заключении по межкультурной коммуникации, то есть...
Summing it up, if you want to discuss the matter in greater detail, we are ready to support you.
Только при планировании стратегии локализации мы должны...
When you plan your legalizing strategy, you have to understand the volume of documents, not only technical ones, but legal, marketing, and human resource related, because you have to train your staff and write contracts, instructions, and other necessary things. In shipbuilding, we have some specifics when it comes to target glossaries. In the Soviet Union, there were over 20 glossaries for hulls, for underwater welding, for navigation. There are specifics in terminology in shipbuilding. Some parts, some words came from tall ships, and they have multi-centuries of circulation. Some terms are new, and they came from drilling platforms or gas carriers. These are modern ships. They no longer use mazout or heavy fuel oil, but liquefied gas, rather. They use methanol. For example, we do have ships using fuel good for global decarbonization. The volume of specialized terms is growing. The majority of maritime terminology is in English. And English has some fancy words There are terms made of several words, and they may include heads, they are anthropomorphic like heads, necks, legs, and hands. And we cannot use the same description, and we use a different approach in the Russian term. Here is an example of a glossary for hull, for ship's hull. There are specialized terms for very tiny things. This is just one valve blade. It has multiple parts, butterfly valve. And we translate not only words, but also designs. And we work in drafts. Therefore, it requires translating companies to purchase special software to deal with these, to handle these documents. Active cooperation with Korean companies. That's good. But there is no shipbuilding dictionary on Korean Russian shipbuilding. In Korea, they use lots of imported, picked up English abbreviations. So cooperating with Korean companies helps use contemporary technologies. Some people will confuse automated and machine translating. Automated translation is done by a person, but with the help of software and the document itself, along with dictionaries, are uploaded, helping the interpreter to pick up the right term and reducing the translation time. But also we have machine translation. And in fact, in 1933, the origin of machine translation goes to the Soviet Union, and the first patent for the machine which ensured translation was issued in Russia. The author died in the Soviet Union in 1950, but the contemporary machine translation was done by the IBM company. There are now tools like Google Translation. Anyone can use it. There are customized systems, and you can customize it for patent documents or for commercial ones. There are hybrid systems to be linked into your internal process or technologies, or technology cards and maps. This is a short story for the machine translation, the short history of machine translation. Machine translation started by translation based on language rules, then based on statistics. Everyone knows this statistics. This is the Google tool. Now we have neuron networks. The network allows to connect different bits and pieces of information, either close to each other or far apart. We have a machine and post-machine editing course. You can, in fact, subscribe. We often run such webinars. The Russian language is specific. Do you know Prompt Company? Have you heard of it? Everyone does. Prompt uses two methods simultaneously. They have a hybrid machine translation. It's neuron-based, neuron network-based, but also it is based on language rules. For the Russian language, that's the most fit option, because Russian is comprehensive as a language, and therefore the best translation is offered by the use of two methods. CAT technologies or machine translation are no good without humans, because we make glossaries, we upload the data needed. Glossaries are different. They can be project-based, and you may use them. Glossaries are designed for a specific project and can be uploaded to a CAD system or used by the translation company. There are dictionaries. and to upload them to the machine systems, they must be processed first. There are dictionaries used to check the translation quality, and they are also very specific in their structure. EGA Translating Company Group has EGATech as part, and they have their own developments of their software, patented. These programs allow you to better use your terminology dictionaries. And for the 30 years of our experience, we put together over 20 glossaries for narrow shipbuilding disciplines. Quite a big translation memory, almost 500,000 segments, and a big volume of dictionary articles, over 150 articles, and we are able to deliver quite high-quality services for technical documents. The Maritime Register of Shipping uses our services for both technical, legal, and economic documents. Wrapping up, when you develop your strategy on localizing at a foreign market, you will determine the volume and the level of linguistic support, because it will guide your team, it will guide your selection of technology. Then you have select your glossary and prepare the translation processes, and you will have the success. So we are the first Russian company that got certified for post-editing for machine translation. We don't have much time today to highlight all specifics in intercultural communication and technical translation, but I'm available for your questions either personally or my colleagues will assist you. And more detailed presentation is available via this QR code, and if needed, we can translate it into 7 languages at least, and it is available in English already. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elena Viktorovna. Well, you cheered up the audience because everyone got so busy thinking about technical parameters. Indeed, translation has its specifics. For example, if foreign companies approach you and they want to localize in Russia, so can we offer you as support both for translation and for simultaneous interpretation if needed? You mentioned 7 languages. I will 7 languages: English, French, German, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, and Turkish, yes, because this is an interesting dimension. We are open to cooperation, and we are good. I won't be modest. We are good because we can offer an entire full scope. Oral interpretation and all types of translation, legal, technical, marketing, economic, ensuring that terminology is the same and confidentiality is observed. We spoke about defense industry and dual-use equipment. We are one of the companies, and there are not many. We are licensed by the Federal Security Service to handle state secret negotiations and translations. Thank you.
Я бы хотел выразить восхищение.
I would like to express my excitement because we have worked with you for quite a long time, and would like to thank you. You helped us. We had an excellent meeting with the Serbia deputy prime minister, and you prepared the very good translation and interpretation. You edited our Cyrillic text, and we work with you when it comes to cooperation with Baltic countries, Balkan countries. Thank you very much, Elena, for your interesting presentation, and we are back on track with the agenda. I have just 1 minute to summarize our event. Some conclusions, probably. The Russian shipbuilding market is big, and we deserve attention of foreign companies. The country implements long-term shipbuilding projects, and it shapes the demand for many years ahead, as Zvezda confirmed. And the demand for shipbuilding materials and equipment will grow if they are Russian-made. And then there are disadvantages for direct supplies from abroad if they do not meet localization requirements. The Regulation 719 requires a localization percentage about 40%, 40 to 45 by year 23, 23 to 25, up to 50%, and after year 25, the localization must be 60% and higher. To enhance the Russian market, foreign companies must carefully plan localization, and we discussed possible formats for that. And we shall remember the requirements in standardization documents. This is a laborious process, but it has clearly defined outcomes, and we welcome you to the Russian market. Raise your questions, and you can now talk to speakers. We are ready to share their contact details. Thank you.